As has been said over these last days, the stories that have recently been told are a little unlike the other segments of stories, those that are explorations of a theme or a word, or ingredients that we put into our pot and cook up. The stories of late are like threads that need to be woven together, knowing that every character, symbol and archetype in every story is an aspect of our self. Perhaps you're beginning to get a gleaning of what it is that's being woven, and to do a little recap. It's that story of the mythical Simurgh bird, whose magic feathers, when they're burned, will call down that bird in times of our need. The genie that arises out of the well to give us a magic word that can cast out demons. The trilling rainbow bird that comes to us unbidden when we seek trying to catch it. The jeweler, whose creativity and ingenuity thwart the devil when he tries to come to take the jeweler's prized possession. And the young man who uses just gentle psychology to silence with a poisoned wet fish the town bully. So here's another thread for our weaving. Here's the story in a time long ago, in a place far away. A cobbler who made shoes and boots in a small town that was along the route of a main highway. Perhaps it was that great Silk Road. But anyway, his business was very sparse because most of his own town people only wore sandals. And those who wore boots were kind of those camoteers or the travellers who came by, and they had boots that lasted them many, many years. So the shoes and boots that the cobbler made were barely enough to make a subsistence living for himself, his wife, and his family. But there was one thing about this cobbler. Every pair of shoes and boots that he made were made with total and absolute attention to their perfection. Every pair of boots and every pair of shoes he dedicated his whole being to. Now it so happened that one day a very rich merchant came by to order a pair of boots from him. And he was very particular about what he wanted. He wanted them to come up to his knees. He wanted them to be of a certain color. He wanted them to be of a certain texture. And he had certain decorations on the heels and so forth. And the cobbler carefully noted what it was that this merchant wanted. But the merchant said, "I'm going away to China in 4 days and I want these boots to be ready for me." So the cobbler undertook to do that. So the merchant said, "I'll send my servant over to collect them in 4 days' time." So the cobbler immediately set aside all the other work that he was doing and concentrated on making these boots. He worked day and night, and as the boots were formed, he polished the leather so that it glistened, that you could see your face in the toes. His wife was very worried because he had no sleep. Day and night he worked to complete these boots, and when they were done, they were magnificent. He admired his work. But then the servant didn't come to collect the boots, and the cobbler had put aside all his work to complete them. So his wife complained, "Where are we going to get money to put food on the table now?" And the cobbler said, well, the messenger hasn't come for the boots. I'll take them to the merchant's house to collect the money. But when he got to the merchant's house, the servant very peremptorily told the cobbler that the merchant had left on a business trip and didn't expect to be back for 6 months. But he could leave the boots there if he wanted, and maybe the merchant would want them and maybe he wouldn't. "But make up your mind, because I've got other things to do," said the servant. "Either leave them here or go away and take the boots with you." So the cobbler took the boots back to his shop, where his wife awaited him. "Where's the money? How are we going to put food on the table for our children and ourselves?" And the cobbler had to tell a story about how the merchant had left town. Well, he put his hand in his pocket and was able to bring out just a few copper coins to give to his wife so that she could go to the town to buy bread for them to eat. And then he polished the boots once again and he placed them in his shop window. Now the townspeople came by and they admired the boots, but as was said, most of them only wore sandals and they could only look and admire these magnificent boots. And then there were the travelers that came by, but they already had boots and they also admired these magnificent boots but did not buy them. But every day the cobbler polished the boots so that you could see your face in the toes and place them back in the window, until one day a young man came into his shop and he was dressed in a peasant's clothes. And so the cobbler didn't think that he was impecunious, so he wouldn't have any money. But he was admiring the boots in the window. So the cobbler said to him, "Yes, you're welcome to try them on and walk around in them. Feel how soft the leather is. Look at how shiny and well made they are." And so the young man put on the boots, and immediately his stature rose up and he strode around the little shop wearing these magnificent boots. But the cobbler thought to himself, "Oh, he won't have the money to buy the boots," when suddenly in the door came an old man dressed in amazing attire. And he walked up to the young man and he said, "Your Majesty, the coach is waiting for you. We were looking for you. We didn't know where you were." Suddenly the cobbler realized that this young man in his peasant's attire was royalty? And the young man said, yes, I know that you thought that I was impecunious, but you see, I often come out in this attire so that I can go back to my father and tell him what's going on in his kingdom. But I want these boots. So he took out of his cloak a bag of gold and placed it on the workbench of the cobbler. And then he followed his servant out and climbed into a carriage that was drawn by two beautiful white horses. And off they went. The cobbler called his wife, "Wife, look at what has happened." And they danced and sang around that small shop, realizing that they were taken care of for a greater time. But you know, as these things happen, when the prince showed his magnificent boots to those around him, there were those who wanted boots like this. So the cobbler found that he had now a clientele, those from the gentry, those from the royalty, who came to his shop to have boots made just like those that were made for the prince. Can you yet glean what it is that's being woven with these stories? Recognizing that every character, archetype and symbol, the simurgh bird, the genie, the cobbler, the jeweler, the student with his wet fish, the trilling rainbow bird, are all aspects of our self. What are we weaving? Could it possibly be that prayer mat that was woven by the wife of the great founder of the Naqshbandi Sufi order, and given to him when he was incarcerated, jailed for heresy? But when he placed his head on that mat, he found it was the design of the lock of his cell. When we have that mat, when we have that design, all that's needed is the key that we have that unlocks our jailed cell. What are we weaving?
It's like everyone, even though we're all one on the planet, every single soul has their own unique gift to give.
Yes.
Whenever they find that gift, if they ever
Certainly.
unlock